My name is Joan Taylor, and I'm a writer. I've written 4 books: Food for the Soul, Living on Purpose, The Veil of Silence, and Hope Abounds. I am a speaker and a teacher, as well as a life coach. I've been in ministry since 2004, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence. Today's message is when your confidence is your defiance. And I say this because I believe there is a point in time, or there are many points, many moments in time along our journey when we are going to have to muster everything that we have to say, I am confidently going to trust God, and I am going to be everything that He has created me to be. And I am defiant to not be anything less than what He has called me to be. God's purpose will not fail. God's purpose must prevail. Every giant must fall, and every Pharaoh must fail. When we look at the Israelites' journey, and they left the wilderness, 10 plagues had happened in Egypt, and Pharaoh experienced them all. But that never stopped his pursuit to continue to enslave God's people, the Israelites. He was coming after them relentlessly. And God hardened Pharaoh's heart as well as all of the Egyptians so that they could pursue the Israelites, so that God's purpose would prevail. What transpired was that the Israelites crossed over. Moses parted the Red Sea. God gave him the power, parted the Red Sea. The Israelites crossed. But because God had hardened Pharaoh's heart and hardened the hearts of the Egyptians, they pursued them even into the Red Sea. And not one of Pharaoh's army, not one of Pharaoh's soldiers survived. Just as God did that then, in the same way God is doing that now. For every adversary and enemy that we encounter as we continue to walk out our calling to fulfill God's purpose for our lives, we will experience many giants and many pharaohs. I believe the worst of them, at least this is my personal experience, are those that come from within. When I say within, I mean within those that are close to us, within our own relatives, within our own family, and amongst our own relatives. I believe that this is the worst experience that we could have. And it reminds me of Joseph's journey. Surely Joseph must have felt that the worst hatred that could befall upon a person would come from within, when his own brothers hated him enough to want to kill him. So it is true then, so it is true now. When your own family members, those you are genetically tied to, are the ones that treat you the worst. But God deals with these things in our lives, and every giant must fall and every Pharaoh will fail. And I really believe that this is true because God's purpose has to prevail in our lives, and He must be glorified. And just as He did it for the Israelites and Moses leading them out, so He is doing it for us today. We must remain confidently defiant, confidently enough to follow God, and defiant enough to not return to the place where we were imprisoned, the places that have held us down, the places in our lives that were not fruitful. Defiant enough to not want to return to the place of preparation because God has already delivered us out of there. I think about 3 passages of scripture that tell us what God does to the people that do harm to us, His children. Psalm 32 tells us He will prepare a table for us in the presence of our enemies. I find that really interesting because it doesn't say He will just prepare a table for us. It says that He will do it in the presence of our enemies and not behind their backs. Psalm 105:15 tells us, touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm, because if you do, there's going to be consequences to that. There were consequences for the Egyptians. There will be consequences for those that touch our lives today. Psalm 110 and 1. Sit in the place of honor, God tells us, until I humble your enemies and I place them under your feet. Our enemies will become our footstools. So for anyone that is experiencing the gravity of hatred and hurtful, harmful acts from within, those that are familiar to us, know that God is going to deal with these situations as they have dealt with us. Pharaoh was familiar to the Israelites. Goliath was familiar to David. Goliath fell, the Egyptians were consumed, and Pharaoh's attempt to keep the Israelites enslaved failed. So it happened then, so it is happening now. The only thing we need to do is to remain steadfast, confidently defiant, that we will be everything that God has created us to be. If this message has encouraged you, share it with a friend. If it has encouraged you, blessed you, and empowered you, consider sowing a seed on joantaylor.org. Please send your prayer request to joan@joantaylor.org. I'd love to pray for you. Until next time. Oh, you know what? I forgot to say something. Oh my goodness. I forgot to say, well, anyway, coming at the back end. Today is day 34 from the wilderness into the promised land. I hope this message has blessed you. Thank you.